Did you know that most drownings occur within a few feet of safety? And that in 90% of those cases, the victim was not wearing a personal flotation device? The TWRA reminds us it just makes good sense to wear your life jacket. It floats. You don't. On this episode of Tennessee Outdoor Journal, we'll go grabbling with a group of fishermen, sticking their hand in the hole just for fun.
Got it. Got a boy. Got a blue.
Next, we'll visit the George Gregory Fishing Rodeo at Williamsport Lakes and watch as some kids get their first chance to reel in a big one. We'll go with the Normandy Fish Hatchery crew as they capture walleye broodfish, take them back to the hatchery, breed them, and raise baby walleyes to stock all across the state.
We do about 100,000 fry per acre in our hatchery ponds.
Next, wildlife habitat biologists with the Private Lands Program help a landowner manage wildlife habitat on his property with the help of fire.
Hey, help!
And finally, watch as training day unfolds, getting TWRA officers as prepared as possible for when the worst happens in real life. Tennessee Outdoor Journal is opening the cover and inviting you in for a behind-the-scenes look at the work being done every day by your Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. Let's turn the page. What kind of legacy will we leave when our days upon this earth are gone? Tell me who will carry on this work that we've begun, care enough to be the keeper of the dream. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Tennessee Outdoor Journal. We'll start this episode off with a bang. We'll go grabbling.
Been doing this about 6 years. Unfortunately, I didn't start it till I was about 50 years old. And a young man by the name of Dustin Buttram teased me into doing it and convinced me to do it one day, and I've been hooked ever since.
Me and Barry, he's straight ahead of me. All right. I'm gonna try to push him back towards y'all. Okay, yeah, he's coming towards you, Hooper.
All right, here, hold this. I'm gonna go in with my hand first. See if I can get him my bite.
Now he's going over there.
It is a rush unlike any other rush you'll have. It's one of those things, if you try it once, you're either hooked for life or you've been there, done that, and you don't want to do it no more. But I caught the bug. I'm out here with Eric Anderson and Tanner Romsdale. I was lucky enough to get them started 2 years ago, and I think they both got the bug too.
This is the big fish holes, and this is where all the big fish always come from. And I was very leery when Hooper first invited me to come out here and try it with him. I'd seen pictures where they'd caught fish before, big 40, 50, 60 pound flatheads. So I thought, I guess it's something I never thought I'd actually try to do, because to me it just seemed just totally crazy. All right, I'm in the mouth. I got him. I got his jaw.
All right, don't let go.
All right, right here at the mouth. You need help?
You good?
Filler, get you a thumb in. Here you go, Barry. Flathead.
We do this during the catfish spawn, and what they're doing, they're cavity nests. They go up into under rocks, and that's where they nest and spawn. And so we've found some locations that the catfish use over the years, and you go back, and during the month of June's a prime month, and go back during the month of June, and you go in and run your hand up in the hole, and they're very territorial and they're guarding their eggs, and they'll come up and shake your hand.
You gonna put it back in the hole?
Go back.
Here you go. There's my hand. There's the hole right there.
All right.
She's in.
She's back in.
Cool.
You catch a 40 pounder, the next thing you want to catch is a 50 pounder. If you catch a 50, you want to catch a 60.
Go get him. He's got him. He's got him. Yes, sir.
Getting a hold of something with that much power, and it's hand to hand, and it's a lot of good time with friends, and it's just a great way to spend a summer afternoon.
15, 20 pounds.
It is an adrenaline rush. He might have her.
Yeah!
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
I love the bass fish. I love the turkey hunt. It's that same adrenaline rush. But unlike all these other sports that are visual, you don't. It's all done by touch and all done by feel.
Ready to put it back in?
Put her in the hole if you don't mind.
All right, 1 second.
And when the catfish grabs you by the hand, it shakes you like a dog. And
Good job.
then the fight's on.
You blocked?
Yeah, he can't get out this hole.
Okay. That is the most exciting part about it, is because you don't know. You stick your hand, or sometimes a stick, or if it's a deeper hole in there, and that fish will react by biting your hand or biting the stick, and that anticipation is the number one thing that I'm scared to death of every time I do it.
Whoa. That's kind of. Dang, it's only going here.
I'd say Eric's fighting it right now. Got him. Yeah, he's fighting it.
I don't think I never felt them or never heard it.
It was right down here. Got him. Got a boy. Got a blue.
Getting your hands on that fish and wrestling it, getting it to the surface is a lot of fun. But for me personally, it's coming out with friends and laughing, picking on each other, joking around. The fish is just the icing on the cake. So whenever you can get a fish to the surface after you've wrestled with him, worked him, and get him up, and you can high five with your friends and just have that memory, that's kind of what it's all about.
Oh, ain't it?
It's a mean old blue, wasn't it?
It's a mean old blue. Got a boy. Got a blue. It's all right.
Next up, Free Fishing Day in Tennessee.
You see, you want to hold him? You got to put your finger right here.
This is the 19th annual George Gregory Fishing Rodeo. This is held out at Williamsport Lakes on Whippoorwill Lake, which is a kids' fishing lake.
I've been here at these lakes ever since they opened. I can't remember what year that was, but it's been a long time. And if I got a chance to fish, I'm here.
This is mainly a kids' event. However, we do allow parents, guardians, whatnot, to come along to fish with their child, just to make it a memorable experience for them.
I brought some kids just, to introduce them to how to fish, and just to teach them how to fish.
I got my grandkids today, and I just love to see a kid catch a fish. An adult, he's had his lifetime to catch a fish. I've had my lifetime. I enjoy to see any kid catch a fish.
The main reason for this event is just to get kids outside fishing. A lot of times they're not able to get out, and this gives them a chance to come out with mom or dad, somebody that wants to take them fishing. That way they can build on that. We do have a wide array of events across the state now. Typically, this event will hold probably around 250 people. We've got some local sponsors. The Maury County Sheriff's Department reserve deputies help sponsor this event, along with Columbia Noon Rotary. They cook lunch. They're really good about helping us out with events that we have here for the youth in Maury County. We usually do door prizes, big fish, small fish. We tag some fish here in the lake, so if somebody catches a tag fish, they'll get a prize for that.
Our big fish winners get a prize, and then they can go up and pick.
We like to get enough prizes where everybody leaves with something.
Pick your prize, buddy.
This is my third time coming out here on a rodeo, fishing rodeo, and Free Fishing Day. A lot of people might not have that income to buy a fishing license, and this is a good day to bring everybody out.
Some of them ain't never been before. You know, if I can share a little something with them, I'm going to. Yeah, they're real excited to be here.
Our next story features Normandy Fish Hatchery and their work with walleye.
Today we're at the very upper reaches of Center Hill Lake. It's the Caney Fork River below Great Falls Dam. It's one of the few places in Middle Tennessee that you have a good walleye run. There's very little available spawning habitat left in Tennessee, so what we do is when we can find those fish that have that available spawning habitat, we'll take a few of them and we'll make many more of them. We'll give them a head start at the fish hatchery, and then we can distribute them across the state, which they do just great. They grow well, they just don't reproduce well in a lot of our reservoirs. So that's the objective. Without the efforts made at fish hatcheries, we probably wouldn't have a sustainable walleye fishery, or in some cases a sustainable crappie fishery, or without a doubt a sustainable striped bass fishery. We actually use electrofishing boats. We have generators with electrodes hanging off of them. The boat actually acts as the ground, and so it forces electricity through the water. Eventually it stuns them, and you can dip them up, put them in the live well, and they'll recuperate within just a few moments. It's really harmless to the fish. We do it every year, annually, and it's usually about the second week in March when water temperatures rise between 50 and 55 degrees. Broodfish are just mature adult fish. So we need males and females to bring back to the hatchery to spawn them to create a good year class for all of the other reservoirs. We try to raise about 1.5 million walleye at this fish hatchery every year. So just by taking about 25 to 30 females and twice the males, 60 males, we can bring them into the hatchery building and under these controlled conditions get about 5 million eggs from those fish. First off, we'll bring the hauling trucks into the building, and we'll take these fish off, and as we bring them off, we're assessing their condition and their health, determining male or female, and we'll separate those fish. If they are not ready to ovulate, we'll give them a small injection of hormone to help stimulate that. It's sort of like being induced at the nursery ward. We generally take 1 female to 2 males, and if we have any water in the dish, then that interferes with the fertilization process. So we'll clean them off, we'll dry them off very well, because when we strip spawn them, you place your hand just below their throat and push the eggs out of their vent. You do that several times until their ovaries are empty. Then we'll bring both the males over and strip the milk out of them onto the eggs. And then we'll just add water, and this begins the fertilization process. As we add the water and stir that up gently with the turkey feather, because the turkey feather is just stiff enough but just soft enough, you can actually turn the eggs but not damage them. So we'll turn those for about 2 minutes. Any less, you get reduced numbers of fertilization. And then we add a suspension of a diatomaceous earth that will break up the stickiness on the eggs, because in nature those eggs will adhere to the rocks almost immediately in that swift water. And in the hatchery environment, we want each egg to be individual and separate from each other, and so that we can flow water around those eggs in this artificial environment. And then we'll transfer the eggs into another bath and let them sit for an hour, 2 hours to water harden. The outside of the eggshell, as soon as it comes out of the vent of that fish, is very soft. And over just a few hours of exposure in the water, that eggshell becomes much harder. So any little rocks that would tumble over it in nature and things like that might not crush that egg. So we let them water harden, and then we'll siphon them off into a jar and then place them on a hatching battery with water flowing through it. And the water will suspend those eggs for 2 to 3 weeks. And the eggs will start out just a very golden yellow, and over time, as they develop in the embryo, they will get much darker. couple weeks later, those after incubating in our jars, the larva will actually hatch out of those eggs. We'll then transfer them into our stocking ponds, our hatchery ponds, where they can grow out. And we try to get them up to about 2.5, 3 inches. Much more than that, and they begin to eat each other. They're a very big predator, and they'll actually cannibalize on themselves. So if we don't get them out within about 30 days after stocking them, they'll begin to eat each other, and your numbers will start to go down. We do about 100,000 fry per acre in our hatchery ponds, and our return could be as much as 80 to 90%. So it's about May 1st, the first week of May, that we start to harvest these things. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of teamwork. It's a fairly simple process. It's just a little time consuming, just waiting for the ponds to drain slowly. Then we go down once all the fish are collected into the kettle, and we'll climb down into there with seines, and we'll seine those fish out into buckets. Once we've harvested all those fish and transferred them onto the hauling tanks, we'll come back to the hatchery building, open up the tanks, and we'll do a quick sub-sample. So we'll take a known weight of fish and we'll count how many of those fish there are per pound. So we know how many pounds are on the truck. We know how many fish per pound, so we can get a good estimate of how many fish we have on the truck. And then it's at that point that we decide where they would need to go. Not all reservoirs have what it takes to produce, crappie, walleye, largemouth bass. So if there's something lacking, we try to supplement that and make every lake a good lake to fish.
Next up, partnering for wildlife habitat.
This break here is the one I'm worried about the most, and then the break on the other end. And those are the two. We term it as the private lands program. We've evolved into wildlife habitat biologists. And so our job is to help landowners manage wildlife habitat on their property.
When my parents passed away and we took over management of the land, I thought about what I wanted to accomplish and the management plans for the farm, and one of the things I really wanted to do was try to bring the quail population back.
If you'll light that for me. Some of the most valuable habitat you can have on your property that will benefit a multitude of a suite of species is early successional habitat. And we basically define that as the first 3 to 5 years of growth on an area. Fire plays an integral part in the management of early successional habitat.
It was pretty easy to get involved with the programs here. Of course, growing up on the farm, I knew about the Soil Conservation Service. I'm actually a professor in the Department of Forestry, Wildlife and Fisheries at UT in Knoxville, and I've done a lot of work with TWRA, so I've done a lot of research on private lands and private land ownership.
There's so many different avenues to take, but in my opinion, that's what we're here for. There are 3 other biologists besides myself across the state, and our job is to work with landowners to guide them through that process. We backburned into the wind and created a larger fire break for ourselves, and then we strip head fired. When you come across and use the wind to carry the fire, and it reaches what you've already burned and dies out. So we did a back burn with strip head fires, and we burnt this whole 10 acres in sections of about 3 acres each. We partner with the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and we work in their system to help these landowners obtain cost share funding through the Federal Farm Bill. We work with the district conservationist in each county and work with the landowners that come into their office asking them about wildlife and wildlife habitat. We work with people that email us or call us. We set up site visits with them. The reason that fire is so important is because it removes all of that dead vegetation and all of that fodder that is inhibiting the movement of ground nesting birds. And so they need that bare ground component to survive. And when we bush hog or mow, we just lay that thatch back down on the ground. So when we use fire, we consume all that and open up the ground level so those species can move and forage freely.
I mean, there are two or three things here, I guess. As a teacher and a professor, we always teach from the book and all these things and go out and see what other people are doing, but this has given me the unique perspective as a landowner to actually understand the thought processes and as well as their programs and everything available. So it's really helping me with bringing in real life experience into the classroom to help train our future natural resource management professionals.
A good place to go to find out this information is our website, tnwildlife.org. You can go in there and there's a section that says for habitat conservationists, and you can scroll through there and find who to contact for technical assistance in your county. There'll be a whole list of district conservationists, foresters, your TWRA wildlife habitat biologists, a suite of people on there in your county that you can contact.
We'll finish off today's episode with a story about training day.
2171, Bedford County 911 called and said 2 fishermen called them and advised a boat has crashed. It's going to be at the Tennessee Fire Codes Academy, be at the lake.
Wildlife officers respond to the call of a boating accident on a local lake. It's a scene that is repeated every year on Tennessee's waters. This evening is different. This accident is staged, and tonight these new TWRA officers are getting the chance to put skills they have learned into action.
For years we have trained on things that are important for our job, whether it's firearms or defensive tactics. We want our officers as prepared as possible for when the worst happens.
This is winnable training. These guys are going to come in, all the pieces are here for them to figure out exactly what happened. They're going to come together as a team, they're going to communicate.
During this week-long session, new officers attend classes, participate in exercises, and receive training from seasoned boating officers and investigators. It culminates into this evening of hands-on training that is as close to real life as you can get.
It's incredible training for new officers to come out and experience their first accident right here under a training environment.
You know, taking the time to bring in all the facets that they would see on the scene of a boating accident, witnesses, fire trucks, ambulances, injured people, officers having to respond to multiple places and multiple calls for service, treating injuries, all of those things you can't get sitting in a classroom looking at a PowerPoint projector.
Hey, help! I found a body over here!
Learning to adapt to the various situations that arise during an investigation is critical to these young officers.
This scenario is really going to show them from beginning to end how to work the scene of a boating accident. There is likely going to be fire trucks as well as EMS treating injured and assessing the scene. It's important for our officers to be able to interact with and identify and work with them to solve a common goal. And that first goal they're going to see is injured people. After that, it's really going to evolve as fast as their investigation evolves. They'll be able to identify the other victim who was found at a later time. They're going to get to interview some witnesses who witnessed some actions of the boat operator prior to the crash. They'll also be able to talk to family members that may have dropped these people off at the lake a little earlier in the day, that gives them a little glimpse into their behavior earlier in the day and anything they were doing that may have been evidentiary in this crash itself. People that go to the lake and get in a boat don't oftentimes have their driver's license or identification in their pocket, so they'll have to identify these people. They'll have to follow up with dispatch and try to locate the boat owners. So all of these things compiled together is really going to make a realistic example of how that officer is going to need to work these.
Every accident that these officers work will be different and present new challenges. but this realistic scenario will give them the confidence in their abilities and a base on which to build.
As soon as we complete, we'll call all the officers back in, all of our veteran officers will go in, and we will have some time to talk to those officers. What did you learn? What happened? Tell us, based on your investigation, what happened in this scenario, because immediately, without their efforts, it's not going to be apparent. They're going to have to work through their investigative skills to find that out. Now, once they get through that, they will receive feedback from all of our officers that they encountered throughout this incident. They will receive feedback from our dispatchers and our boating investigators to tell them all the things they did great and maybe point out a few things they may be able to improve on. Again, we always want these guys to succeed, but if they stumble, we want it to be out here in scenario training.
I've been doing this job for 20 years, and every time I work one, I find out something I can do better. So we're really not telling them they're doing anything wrong, we're just telling them that there's certain things they can do better.
Now, they've had the training, but here's the test. You know, paper tests are very good, but this is truly where the rubber meets the road, and we want these guys to succeed. So we're going to push them as hard as we can. And the end result is the citizens of the state of Tennessee are going to benefit from professional, highly trained officers.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Tennessee Outdoor Journal. We'll see you next time. Tennessee Outdoor Journal is produced by your Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency.
Tell me who'll carry on this work that we've begun. Care enough to be the keeper of the dream. This legacy, our legacy.
Hey Tennessee, I'm Kix Brooks. You know, I've been blessed to tour this nation from sea to shining sea. And every time that bus rolls back across the state line, I'm reminded how good we have it here in our home state. Whether you like to hunt, fish, or watch wildlife, we got our Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency to thank for it. But before you follow that red dirt road to your favorite fishing hole or hunting spot, there's one thing you need: a license. Just visit GoOutdoorsTennessee.com and you can get your license in minutes.
Hi, I'm Charlie Daniels. When I was a kid, I loved baseball and football and all kind of stuff, but my favorite pastime was when my daddy would get me up early in the morning, we'd go hunting or fishing. Out in the fresh air on the water or back in the woods, and you learn a lot. You got kids, take them hunting, take them fishing. Join me. Buy a hunting or fishing license. Let's keep wildlife in Tennessee. That's a doggone good thing.
Buy your license today at GoOutdoorsTennessee.com.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lawrence, just letting you know that the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency supports itself and manages all of the state's wildlife with the dollars invested by hunters and fishermen when they buy licenses. If you've never bought a license, but appreciate the abundant wildlife we enjoy in this state, I encourage you to do it. Start with the Type 01. It's a great investment in Tennessee wildlife. Learn more at tnwildlife.org.
Buy your license today at GoOutdoorsTennessee.com.